November 17th was a protest that was called by labor unions some months ago, in particular the service employees and a group called Stand Up Chicago. This was part of a national protest, and it seems to have been aimed originally at passing the Obama jobs bill, or at putting the pressure on to pass the Obama jobs bill. I think as the event grew closer in time, there were several things going on, one of which was the development of the Occupy movement, which, in Chicago at least, challenged the idea that we should be supporting the Obama jobs bill. And you know, we can think of a number of, anybody can think of a number of reasons why, such as the fact that it was funded by reducing funding to Social Security.
And I say to all Congress people and people in power, no more, no more, no more. The people are fed up.
The other thing that changed the focus of the November 17th events was the impending decision, or as it turns out, looks at this moment as if it will be a non-decision, of the Super Committee, a bipartisan committee created by Congress with the cooperation of the White House to come up with a combination of massive cuts in social spending, and it was supposed to also come up with some tax increases and some cuts to the military. Meantime, the Occupy movement, I think, has it's clearly evolved, it's clearly developed, and certainly in my view, from my vantage point in Chicago, it seems to have become more focused and quite clearly pro-labor and in favor of defending social programs. The November 17th protest in Chicago began at the Thompson Center. It was the first really cold day of the winter, quite bitterly cold actually, unexpectedly cold, in spite of which I would estimate, I don't know, 2,000 people or something, I think that's conservative, gathered outside the Thompson Center in the cold and the wind, and heard a number of speakers.
So once again, who's ready to take it to the bridge? I said, who's ready to take it to the bridge? We can't slow down. They stand still now.
The police maintained a fairly low profile. They had already blocked Wacker Drive on either side of LaSalle Street, about a block back. To make sure that, well, basically the police interfered with traffic so that the march could proceed. Down Randolph Street towards LaSalle Street and then north to the LaSalle Street Bridge.
Jobs not cuts. 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 Jobs not cuts.
So the march was effective in the sense that it stopped traffic and it blocked the bridge for some period of time, somewhere between half an hour and an hour, in the freezing cold wind, I should say. It was one was very aware of how cold it was standing on that bridge over the Chicago River on a day in the second half of November.
I'm warning you that you are in violation of city ordinance, that you are blocking the roadway. You are not showing due care as a pedestrian. At this time, I am asking you to leave the roadway.
All media, working media, please move back that way. Please move back that way.
You are blocking the roadway. You are endangering yourselves to arrest and/or citation.
I know you need to take the picture, but not.
Some arrests were made of people who I believe sat down on the bridge in protest against the lack of stimulus happening, against the lack of money coming from the federal government to support rebuilding our infrastructure, which, as everyone who's paying attention has known for 25 or 30 years, America's infrastructure is not in good shape and it needs to be fixed. In order for American industry and American commerce and American job creation and all those things that the politicians in Washington claim to be in favor of could actually proceed.
My name is Jim Jeske. I'm with SEIU Local 73. I'm on the executive board, and I also work for the Cook County Highway Department.
So we took a bridge here, and this is an important part of fighting for jobs. Can you explain what we're doing?
Well, one of two things: to let people know it's the People's Bridge, first of all, but second of all, to point out the infrastructure, which is over 50 years old, which is failing, and in another 10, 15 years we may not be able to do this because this bridge won't take the weight. So they need to get off that money, get a jobs bill started, and get their infrastructure repaired so we can go on and build our economy.
So that rally then made its way south to join the Occupy rally, and there is a difference. The Occupy rally was also previously planned separately from the Union-backed rally to take the bridge. The Occupy rally was to be at what the Occupy Chicago group called HQ, headquarters, which is outside the Chicago Board of Trade at LaSalle and Jackson. And that's where they've been camped out for weeks, for almost about 2 months at this point. When I got down there, I noticed that the crowd seemed bigger and, if I might say so, younger than the crowd on the bridge. It was basically joined by the crowd on the bridge, so it was bigger. It's hard to estimate crowd size when it's all in a sort of, when it's on the streets and there are different groups on the side streets and so on, but several thousand. It was in the low thousands, I would say. It was noisy, it was lively, and it was certainly, to my knowledge, to my certain knowledge, it was joined by people who'd never been on a rally of that kind before. And I can say that because at my union locals meeting, I happened to be the president of a smallish AFSCME local 2858, and we had a membership meeting the previous night on the north side, which was addressed by two invited speakers from the Occupy movement, James and Andy, who were very energetic, very well prepared to explain what the Occupy movement is about, and they led us all in a mic check just to demonstrate how it's done. And several of my members who haven't been on these rallies before came out in response to that. And I think that that symbolizes the way in which the Occupy movement is energizing new layers, young and not so young.
It's a great march, and there's all different kinds of people with different opinions here. One of the things I think is equalized funding for education. If we did that, it would be an incredible change in how our society works. Every school gets the same amount of money.
And it's a challenge to people who have accepted the story that we get, unfortunately, all too often, in fact, almost all of the time, the story that we get from the union leaders is, well, the main thing you've got to do is get out and vote. In fact, these two young men were challenged by a retiree in our meeting who asked rather bluntly, I thought, well, are all those people occupying the Horse and those places downtown, are they all registered to vote? Well, first of all, the short answer is yes. But the more important answer, as Andy from the Occupy Chicago Labor Outreach Group phrased it, is yes, but we want to make being registered to vote worthwhile, because at this point there is there's very little point in just voting. Are we going to vote for President Obama and this Congress on both sides of the aisle, which seems to be determined to attack Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and many, many, many other social programs? And he might have said, which is also deporting more so-called illegal immigrants than at any time for many, many decades.
Last year, they deported 400,000 people, separated families, put them in detention centers, private detention centers, and left people to die. This is unacceptable. Immigrants are the 99%. And we have to stand with them. Because they are in the shadows. But they won't be quiet anymore. We did it in 2006. And we're going to do it again.
You are the 99%.
The Occupy March, they went north one block from Jackson and then went east, so crossing Clark, Dearborn, and State Street. So the shopping area, which at that time on a Thursday night there's still quite a lot of people around, which is good. And they took it to Michigan Avenue, walked past the Congress Hotel, and then down to the Horse, where there were speeches and I believe a GA. I left at that point. I've been to a couple of meetings of the Occupy Chicago Labor Outreach Group, and I find it very interesting because, first of all, it's by creating this separate force, this completely separate entity, which everybody who's interested in any kind of political change in America is fascinated by. They've also created a space where labor unions can get together with other pro-union people, union supporters if you like, who may or may not be members of unions, to discuss tactics, strategy, and a way forward. And this doesn't happen at the Chicago Federation of Labor. This group, which was initially derided by a lot of liberals and people on the left as being directionless and not knowing what it wanted. And I think Cornel West answered that very, very well when he said, "This is a democratic awakening. You can't expect," and I'm paraphrasing what he said as well as I can remember, "This is a democratic awakening. You can't expect the needs of this moment to be boiled down to a couple of specific demands." So a space has been opened for a discussion to take place that has been urgently needed for as long as anybody can remember, as far as who are we? We are the 99%, it turns out. That bold statement, in my view, puts an end to all the bickering and wittering that's gone on for the whole of my political lifetime as to, well, how exactly do you define the working class and the middle class and so on and so forth? Well, it's very clear at this point. 99% of the population owns only a little bit more than half the wealth, so we're told, and has absolutely no political power. Political power is in the hands of one, or you could argue about maybe 0.1 or 0.001% of the population. So in a moment, the movement has swept away that foolish, time-wasting argument and has created the space where we're now debating the way forward. I think there is a clear danger that the Democratic Party will try to co-opt the Occupy movement, and they will come to it in the guise of union leaders. There are plenty of union leaders whose loyalty, judging by their actions, appears to be to the Democratic Party first and to their own membership second. This is not news. We all know this. So I think that we are looking at a period when there is going to be more reason to fight back, but we're also seeing where the groundswell of resistance is coming from. And it's very inspiring, and I think this is a very exciting time.